First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself.
Never really fitting in, not really being wanted.
She was an exceptional and gifted human being.
The princess didn't understand the Queen's world, and the Queen didn't understand the princess's world.
In good times and bad, she never lost her capacity to smile and laugh, nor to inspire others with her warmth and kindness.
Without her, the royal family may have foundered. They may well not be here today.
I admired and respected her for her energy and commitment to others, and especially for her devotion to her two boys.
She was that mainstay that kept them going. The princess's popularity gave the royal family a new lease of life.
Modernisation is a very hard word to use in the context of the royal family because the royal family is built on history and tradition and protocol, and Diana really broke the mould. She did things differently.
She enjoyed life, she was a vibrant person, she was charming, she was the daughter of an earl, she'd been married, well, she was just 20 years old when she got married, and her life had been very prescribed for her within the royal family. But nevertheless, she still asserted herself, and after she got used to being a princess, she became more and more her own person. And that's what people loved about her.
No one in history has ever been so universally adored as Diana, Princess of Wales. In her short life, she captivated the world with her beauty, charm, and limitless compassion. Despite her shy demeanour, she was brave and strong. Her honesty and empathy challenged the century-old tradition of stoic royal silence and brought a queen and her people closer than ever before. After her sudden and tragic death, at the age of 36, the country and the world shared their grief at the loss of a princess, Humanitarian and mother. Now, 2 decades on, we look back at her incredible life and how she changed the royal family forever.
Can you take us back to when you first met? If you can remember. Can you remember when you first met?
Yes, certainly can. It was 1977. Charles came to stay as a friend of my sister Sarah's for a shoot. We sort of met in a ploughed field.
Slightly previous to that, but I know.
And what did you think then? What was your instant impression, both of you? What did you think about Lady Diana?
Well, I remember thinking what a very jolly and amusing and attractive 16-year-old she was. And, I mean, great fun, and bouncy and full of life and everything. And I don't know what you thought of me.
Pretty amazing.
Just as Charles fell immediately in love with Princess Diana, or Lady Diana Spencer as she was at the time, so too did Britain. We hadn't seen the likes of a future princess like this for many, many years, and Diana was just a stunner.
What happened with the princess was she came to us at a romantic, new, fresh time into the royal family. She came to save it in a way, because it was on the decline. Her involvement in the royal family boosted the royal family's popularity, lifted the royal family.
She was charming and full of fun, quite unexpectedly so, and she really enjoyed a joke. She had a great sense of humour.
The innocence about her, you just thought, wow, this girl is knockout. So there was a huge interest from the moment the engagement happened. Everyone watched the engagement footage. Everyone around the world, pretty much, tuned into the royal wedding. I mean, that was a huge event in '81.
Diana Crosses.
Take thee, Charles Philip Arthur George.
Take thee, Philip Charles Arthur George.
To my wedded husband.
To my wedded husband.
It was the most watched event in human history to that point. More people watched that than man landing on the moon. You saw that creased dress, that over-the-top romantic wedding. It was the wedding of the century.
The fairy tale dress, the golden carriage, the beautiful ceremony at St. Paul's, the blushing bride, the proud prince. It just ticked all the boxes. It was the fairy tale wedding, or so we all thought.
Next to Prince Charles and I can't go wrong. He's there with me.
I can tell you in the beginning she was a shy, naive, quiet girl who knew nothing about the world. She was thrown in at the deep end and told to swim, and she learned quickly.
Well, Diana made it very clear that she felt like a fish out of water. Even before her actual wedding, she said she spent those nights before her wedding at Clarence House, which was then the Queen Mother's residence. And the night before her wedding was one of the most miserable of her life. She recalls how she felt completely isolated, you know, the images of the princess trapped in the tower. And I don't think that the palace were prepared for someone who perhaps didn't have that royal training to marry into the royal family and to become a future queen. She was the Princess of Wales. She became famous overnight, and she didn't really have the tools to equip her for such immediate stardom.
There was nothing like Diana. There was Diana mania everywhere. Everybody wanted to see Princess Diana.
Madam, how are you enjoying married life?
Highly recommend.
The young princess became the global centre of attention. Huge public adoration led to a frantic press that hounded her every move. She'd become an international icon at the age of just 20 years old, and she quickly became known as the most photographed woman in the world.
Well, Diana fell pregnant with William very quickly, and by 82, the country had a new heir, and that was a cause for great celebration. The crowds, the photographers, the world press were all camped outside the Lindo Wing at St Mary's in June 1982, and the fact that Diana produced a little boy, an heir, I think just further endeared her to the British public. People loved her even more, and when she came out holding Prince William with Prince Charles, images that really just melted, I think, even the most hardened hearts around the country. And it was a cause for great celebration. Britain had come through a difficult time, and I think the royal family were giving the country something to look forward to.
I remember saying to Princess Diana on one occasion when her son was getting taller and taller, I said, "You've bred some height into the royal family." And she said, "Yes, and good looks, and good looks." And what she was talking about was the introduction of her family, the Spencers, into a very tight royal gene pool. And the result was 2 good-looking sons.
While William was still a baby, the princess decided to take him along on her tours of Australia and New Zealand, despite media scrutiny. Her stubbornness only made the importance of her children that much clearer, and 2 years after the birth of Prince William, the couple had their second child, Henry Charles Albert David, or Prince Harry as he's more commonly known, was born on September the 15th, 1984. The arrival of the young princes only heightened the press attention towards the couple. Around this time, rumours were circulating of cracks beginning to form in this fairy tale of a marriage, but the couple continued to uphold a happy family front, at least for the public.
Being a new mother, there were obviously challenges for Diana, but being a new mother and being a member of the royal family and trying to juggle everything within the confines of Kensington Palace, I think really did take their toll. Now, Diana did make the decision to hire a nanny for Prince William. I think she was always paranoid as both of the boys were growing up, that they might become too close to their nanny. In fact, she fired one of the nannies, a wonderful woman called Barbara Barnes, who both William and Harry doted on, because it was Barbara Barnes who William would run to and jump into bed with in the morning, not Diana. So there was that constant struggle of wanting to be the perfect mother and wanting to be the perfect princess, and I think she found it hard to reconcile those. Remember, she was still very young, much younger than Kate is in this position, and I think far less supported.
After the dismissal of the royal family nanny, Diana made it very clear that she was to be at the forefront of her children's lives, unlike the traditional, distant upbringings of the royal family's past. She chose their first given names, their clothes, their nurseries and schools, and would take them herself, as often as her schedule, being the Princess of Wales, would allow. People have often described Diana, after the birth of William and Harry, as a mother first and a princess second. It was important to her that her children were not to be brought up inside the bubble of the royal privilege and ignorant of the lives of the everyday man and woman on the street, and to those who are less fortunate. Against established protocol, Diana took her sons along to charity visits as well as restaurants, theme parks and high street shops, even walks around local towns and villages. She brought them video games and typical teenage items of the time. She was a devoted and loving mother, despite the criticism from within the royal household.
I want them to have an understanding of people's emotions, people's insecurities, people's distress, and people's hopes and dreams.
You know, Diana really broke the mould. When it came to parenting, she did things differently.
She loved to have fun. She loved to giggle. She loved to play practical jokes. And she loved nothing more than cuddling up with her two boys, watching TV and watching game shows and soap operas. And the boys were the centre of her world. William, although he looks like his mother, is more like his father. He's studious, he's very careful, he's very respectful, he's duty-bound. Harry, on the other hand, is a hybrid of the Spencers' red hair and the Windsors, but he has his mother's naughty streak. Harry is the fun guy. Harry was always the boy that would take apart the television set. The video recorder, he would have in bits and want then to put it back together again. Harry was always the soldier, William was always the general.
Yet despite the happy family facade, the rumours were beginning to look true, and the cracks in the marriage of the Prince and Princess of Wales were beginning to show. Royal correspondents recall how on visits they would stay in separate hotel rooms and would go hours without speaking to one another. The public and press, Diana-mania as it was called, spurred a resentment and a jealousy within Charles for his wife, because despite his royal blood, the people seemed to love his commoner wife more than him.
Princess Diana, like the rest of the world, was caught up in the fairy tale that was her own royal relationship, and she was willing it to work, as was everyone else. Actually, the reality behind Palace Gates is that pretty quickly it started falling apart. People have suggested, and we now know, that that was very soon after they returned from their honeymoon, so very early on in the marriage.
But even still, the princess tried to make her marriage work, and she never actually wanted a divorce. She said, "I'll have a separation, but I don't want to be divorced. For the children's sake, I want us to remain a family unit, to bring them up as parents."
inevitably the announcement was made by the then Prime Minister, John Major, that Diana and Charles were going to separate. Now, Diana knew that this was going to ricochet, and she made sure that the first people who found out that they were going to separate were William and Harry, and she actually made the drive to Ludgrove School herself to go and tell them. And Harry took it very badly, of course, being younger than William. He was incredibly upset. William was very stoic and said to his mother, well, if you're going to be happier, Mummy, then this is the right thing to do. Because, of course, Diana didn't have many confidants. I think with the palace came a lockdown. Yes, there were some courtiers, but you couldn't really confide in courtiers. There were some close friends, but the person she really often confided in was William. And as a young boy, trying to cope with that was a huge weight on his shoulders. But it was William who would push tissues under the door to Diana while she was having a good sob in the bathroom over how beastly Charles was being, and she made no secret of that, and she would confide, some might say too much, in her eldest son at that time.
As the world began to notice the unhappiness between what once was a fairy tale couple, the speculation began to fly about what could have gone wrong and who was to blame. Accusations of infidelity were thrown at both sides, until eventually it became public that both Diana and Charles had been unfaithful in a relationship they watched collapse before their eyes. Diana had been seeing former household cavalry officer James Hewitt of the British Army, and Charles had maintained a relationship with his ex-girlfriend and now married Camilla Parker Bowles. As speculation came to a head, both the Prince and Princess gave television interviews to defend both their actions and their reputation.
It sounds self-righteous to say so, but I have, on the whole, tried, I think, to get it right. I mean, constantly, people scrutinising. So, I mean, I have always tried to get it right and try to do the right thing by everybody. So you can imagine, it's not a very happy or encouraging thing when this sort of business happens.
But you do bear some of the responsibility.
Absolutely. We both made mistakes.
Princess Diana giving Martin Bashir the Panorama interview was her way of essentially saying, look, I need to put my side of the story across.
Completely unprecedented, a total shock to the royal family and to William and Harry as well. I don't think anyone was prepared for this bombshell of an interview. Diana sat down, gave this interview and talked about there being 3 in the marriage. She talked about her husband's infidelity with Camilla Parker Bowles. She talked about her own infidelity. I mean, she opened up the book in a way that no one had before. The royal family saw it as hanging her dirty laundry in public. They were furious.
Showing so much emotion. And that was really the first time, although people in the press had known about all of this bubbling under the surface, that the general public got to find out, essentially, that she'd been living this life with huge adultery in her face, essentially.
Were you surprised at the political furore that developed as a result of your visit to Angola?
I saw it merely as a distraction because I'm not a political figure. I am a humanitarian figure, and always have been and always will be.
It's extraordinary that the Princess of Wales, although no longer officially a member of the royal family, she's still associated with the royal family. And she is the ex-wife of a future monarch and the mother of another future monarch, that she would discard tradition so lightly.
I think she found her role as the world's most photographed woman both suppressing but kind of a revelation to her, in that she had this ability to perhaps manipulate the media, have a bit of a laugh and joke with photographers and reporters alike, and equally use this global presence for good, and that's how she got into her charitable work. She realised that she had a role to fulfil and that people would listen to her.
Using her royal position to enhance her reputation, while at the same time poking royal traditions in the eye.
Princess Diana set a new royal precedent through her intensely involved charitable effort. She challenged every notion of how a monarchy should interact with its people by becoming heavily involved in the work of charitable foundations in and around the Commonwealth. she used her global presence and press following to direct public attention to the issues she campaigned for.
You set one of these off, it's going to jump up, and this will take out everybody in 25 metres.
And the anti-mines issue is just one she says she'll continue to support around the world.
She'd been visiting Angola, she'd been visiting former Yugoslavia, where these terrible weapons are deployed in hundreds of thousands.
I gave Princess Diana an anti-personnel mine, which I hope she keeps on her desk to remind her every day that people are actually risking their lives to try and do something about this problem. And indeed, worldwide, people are actually standing on mines and either being killed or being very seriously injured.
In people's memories, people, I think, still reflect very fondly on Diana for the person she was, for her vulnerability, but first and foremost for her charitable efforts.
Well, she's special because she brings light to the world about all the sadness that's going on in the world.
I wanted just to be with you, to show you that you are not forgotten.
And then, of course, she took William and Harry to the London Lighthouse to see people suffering and dying with HIV and AIDS. Invaluable in those fields which she pioneered, in those fields which the rest of the royal family wouldn't dare touch. And I remember the Queen saying, "But Diana, you must wear gloves. You might catch whatever these people have." I think it's just born of ignorance, really, because they knew nothing better. They weren't educated. The princess was.
I remember when I used to sit on hospital beds and hold people's hands, people used to be sort of shocked because they said they'd never seen this before. And to me, it was quite a normal thing to do. And when I saw the reassurance that an action like that gave, I did it everywhere. And we'll always do that.
Whenever we went to New York, there's a little altar in St. Patrick's Cathedral. It's the first on the left through the door. It's St. Jude. He's the patron saint of lost causes. And she said, "That's me and you. We're lost causes." There's a little altar in Kensington Church Street in the Carmelite Church. And the first altar, as you go in through the door on the right-hand side, is St. Jude. So we could lay flowers and say prayers, either in New York or in Kensington. So it was handy for us. And she gave me a little medal of St. Jude, which I cherish to this day. But she gave me lots of things in life. She gave me, most of all, a great education in people. She showed me things which no one else could show me. Touring the world with her through Angola, through Bosnia, Pakistan, Egypt, and meeting people less fortunate than we are, it really does open your horizons. And you realize what life is about. It isn't about money, it isn't about position or being royal. It's about making a difference to someone else. Whether it's someone walking through my flower shop door or it's someone on the street in Lahore. It's making a difference. It's touching someone else's soul. And that's what she taught me.
Even after the formal separation of the couple in 1992, announced by the then Prime Minister John Major, the relationship of the Prince and Princess of Wales was irrevocably damaged. The Queen had sent letters to both of them, advising a divorce for the sake of preserving the reputation of the monarchy, advice backed by the Prime Minister and senior Privy Councillors. Then in February 1996, the Princess announced her agreement to a settlement. The divorce was finalised on August 28, 1996, and much to the dismay of Buckingham Palace, Diana issued a statement of the divorce and its terms. As she was no longer married to the Prince of Wales, Diana lost her title, Her Royal Highness, and was instead styled Diana, Princess of Wales. But now she was a free woman.
When she was separated from Prince Charles, and even before that, and she'd been seeing friends of hers, she knew that the bodyguards who went everywhere with her would be reporting on her movements back to Prince Charles who she was seeing, where she was going, how long she stayed in this particular house, who she met with, who she spoke to, who she had a cup of coffee with. And she wasn't prepared for that. Yes, she needed security. She wanted security, but she knew that security came with strings attached, and she wasn't prepared to be tied up in strings by the royal family.
And having lived inside that safety of that gilded cage of a palace for so long, she needed to be kept safe, and that's what she was looking for.
I don't know how she'll find a husband, but I always imagined she'd end up with someone older, very powerful and rich, perhaps a sort of Onassis-type figure that really could look after her and whisk her away from everything, in the same way that Onassis did for Jacqueline Kennedy.
After the divorce, Diana retained her double apartment on the north side of Kensington Palace. Diana dated the respected British Pakistani heart surgeon Hasnatt Khan. In May 1996, Diana visited Lahore upon invitation of Imran Khan, a relative of Hasnatt Khan, and she also visited Hasnatt's family in secret. Khan was intensely private, and the relationship was conducted in secrecy, with Diana lying to members of the press who questioned her about it.
2 years, no one knew about him. And in the end, their relationship finished in a shouting match on Wandsworth Common. And they were shouting at each other because the princess wanted Hasnatt to come out, to declare his love, to be in public with her. There isn't one picture of Hasnatt and the princess because he was so careful not to let his world collide with hers. But how could that be? How could they coexist in the same room, in the same world? A surgeon and a princess. It just didn't seem right.
Dodi Fayed was the son of Egyptian billionaire Muhammad Al Fayed, and heir to Harrods, the famous department store of London. After meeting the princess, Dodi said that he would never love another woman for the rest of his life. In the summer of 1997, he invited Diana and her sons to join his family in the south of France on a multi-million-pound 60-metre yacht named the Jonnacle. She wanted to escape the spotlight of royal life that had chased her since her engagement at the age of 19, and felt that life with the Fayeds could be her way out.
What attracted Diana, Princess of Wales, to Dodi Al Fayed was that she, throughout her whole life, was looking for a happy family. From the age of 6, when Diana's mother walked out and she stood at the gate and saw her disappear, her whole life was dedicated to finding again the happiness of the family that she lost.
In those early days, she had so little self-confidence. She didn't believe in herself. And I think that love lost in those early days haunted her through her life. She was always searching to be loved. She was always wanting to embrace people. And I remember when I got married, she came and sat in my kitchen, hitched herself up onto the draining board on the sink with her legs dangling, looked at me and said, "Do you know, this is all I've ever wanted, a happy family life." And that's the one thing that she could never have. So that love with Prince Charles that she gave everything for disappeared. And she turned around and there was no one there. The most beautiful woman in the world had no one to hold her.
She had given a speech actually post-divorce saying, look, I hope you all understand that I'm going to have to step down a bit. I'm going to keep on some of my patronages, but I'm not going to have work thrust upon me that I can't cope with. I've had a very busy time being royal. I now want to retreat a bit and enjoy life. And indeed, friends said she was enjoying life. She had had relationships, of course, somewhat doomed with James Hewitt and then Hasnat Khan, the heart surgeon. And she had just started seeing Dodi Fayed, and they had enjoyed a lovely time on the yacht, the Mohammed Al Fayed's yacht, the Jonakal, on the Med. She had been photographed there in a swimsuit looking amazing. And it had been the dawning of a new era, I think, for Diana, in that she had been repackaged and she was going to go out and do her thing for landmines and her other causes.
She was too important. She was too big a person to be let free.
Diana, Princess of Wales, has in fact been killed in that car accident in Paris just a few hours ago. There had been extreme concern that Diana was very seriously injured when she was taken from the wreckage. There was a news blackout to all intents and purposes for a significant amount of time. Now there is confirmation that Diana, Princess of Wales, has died. She died at 4 a.m. after going into cardiac arrest. That, according to doctors at the hospital in Paris, Diana, Princess of Wales, is dead.
I feel like everyone else in this country today, utterly devastated. Our thoughts and prayers are with Princess Diana's family. We are today a nation in Britain in a state of shock, in mourning, in grief that is so deeply painful for us. She was a wonderful and a warm human being. Though her own life was often sadly touched by tragedy, she touched the lives of so many others in Britain, throughout the world, with joy and with comfort. She was the people's princess. And that's how she will stay, how she will remain in our hearts and in our memories forever.
It was a very warm night in Paris. The windows were open. There was a fan on the bedside table. And I could see the princess lying in a bed, covered by a white sheet. And as I approached her bed, the grief kicked in. The emotion started to rise inside me, and I couldn't contain it. And I was devastated to see her lying there. And then I looked at her, and the fan on the table was blowing her hair, and her hair was moving. And I could see her eyelashes moving. And I thought, she's just sleeping. She's just asleep. She's not really dead. And then I realized she was dead. because what was Diana was the essence of her beauty was her eyes, her sparkling eyes and her mouth and those beautiful teeth. And I couldn't see them. So I said to her, open your eyes just once more. But she didn't. I think we all know what that feels like when it comes to our loved ones. We want them just to open their eyes just for one more minute. But that didn't happen. And I realized that she was gone. And then I remembered something she said to me. She said, the greatest privilege she ever had in life was being with someone when they passed. Because she said, you know what happens? When you pass, your soul lifts from the body and it stays in the room. And you wait a while and you watch. So I knew she was there with us. I knew she was in the room. As I sat there with her, she wasn't there. This was the empty packet that kept Diana anchored to this world. But I knew she was here somewhere, watching. So in a way, that was a bit of a comfort to know she was there. But you know how many times she's there? She's always there. And she's always in my dreams. And she will be with me for the rest of my life.
I rang immediately Mr. Fayed, who was at his country house in Surrey, and he answered the phone, but he didn't speak to me. He held the phone, he was on another telephone, and I could hear that he was speaking to his helicopter pilot to arrange to get the helicopter to come pick him up so that he could go straight to Paris. And when I did speak to him, I said, look, I've just heard that there's been a terrible accident and that I'm sorry to say that Dodi's been killed. This is the news I've been given, and that the princess has been injured. And I will never forget his courage, his stoicism, because he said, Michael, let us pray that this is not true. Let us pray that they are all right. He said, I'm on my way to Paris in a minute, and I'm going to find out what's happened. Let's stay in touch with each other. And it was the most appalling news. I mean, I hadn't even known that they were in Paris, so it was all news to me. But I thought, well, I have to do something, and I got up and I rang the Ritz Hotel in Paris, and I spoke to the duty manager, and he told me what had been going on during the day, how they'd been harassed by the press. And then I rang the princess's stepmother, Reign Countess Spencer. I told her the news, and she also, like Mohammed, was extraordinarily strong and courageous. Well, within a very few minutes, she called me back, and bear in mind that the first report said that Diana wasn't badly injured, that she may have broken or dislocated an arm, that she was seen walking into the ambulance from the car. All these reports were put out, so I was thinking that she'd been hurt, but not terribly badly. And then Reign Spencer said to me, she's been killed. And however dreadful it was to hear that Dodi was dead, this was somehow even worse. And it was like being hit in the solar plexus with very hard. And I was in my kitchen, standing by the worktop, and I fell to my knees and I just burst out into tears. When I'd recovered, my wife was with me, I rang Mohammed. By this time, he was in France, he was in a car, traveling towards the morgue where Dodi's body had been taken. And when I told him, he didn't know, I told him that Reign had found out that Diana was dead. He said, Michael, this is terrible. He said, but let us pray it's not true. I'm going to the hospital. He said, instead of the morgue, I'm going straight to the hospital. and he decided to go to the hospital where the princess had eventually been taken. And he said, well, let us keep in touch with each other. And having done everything I could, I then went to London and went to my office to deal with the tremendous amount of press interest.
The most beloved woman in the world was gone. After the initial shock of this sudden and tragic loss, there was an international outpouring of grief. The impact was unprecedented, but never before had a public figure so deeply affected the lives of people from all walks of life. Her demonstration of selfless love and empathy towards those most vulnerable transformed her from a tabloid star to an icon of peace and progress. At this time, the royal family maintained its traditional stoic silence. They grieved in private, they kept calm and carried on. The family faced severe criticism from the public and press alike because of this. Her entire royal life, Diana had worked to bridge the gap between decaying monarchy and its indifferent people. And now more than ever they needed to unite. When Queen Elizabeth gave her speech at Buckingham Palace, standing before the crowds of mourners gathered at the palace gates, she spoke not only as a queen, but as a grandmother. Never before had she opened up so personally to her people. However, beneath all this was the most heartbreaking truth. Princess Diana was a mother, and now there were 2 young boys who had to face the rest of their lives without her.
The boys were very quiet and somber. I saw them coming through the aisle, and my heart ached for them. And even the Queen was moved. And people think that the Queen was hard during that time, but she wasn't. She was touched and moved by it. If you see that speech she gave, you'll see that she was moved. She didn't quite understand it, but she was moved.
I, for one, believe there are lessons to be drawn from her life and from the extraordinary and moving reaction to her death. I share in your determination to cherish her memory.
It's also caused the royal family to reflect on what it is that makes them popular and the kind of figure that Diana was. We know that the outpouring of grief took the Queen by surprise. She did what she thought was best for those 2 boys at the time. As a grandmother, kept them in Balmoral, wanted to protect them. But actually, I think the royals learnt to accept that the public thinks they own a piece of them. And actually, if somebody like Diana passes away, people will be leaving flowers in their droves at Kensington Palace. And there needs to be sort of a family recognition. This whole stoic, we can't show our emotions, sort of seems a little outdated now. And I think moving on, we do have a family that appears a bit more like us than just them behind palace gates. I think there's more interaction. I think particularly with William and Harry, you see them relating with the public a lot better. And that is because essentially the apple doesn't fall far from the tree and they are their mother's sons.
And finally got hands on to a job that I absolutely adore. It is still hard work, but I'm better than William, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Have you been helping him with the exams?
Yeah, an awful lot. He needs a lot of help. It's the RAF way, so you have to help the army out quite a lot.
Does it come down to sort of mental maths tests? Or?
Yeah, a bit of that. A few trick questions, try and catch him out.
7 8s.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of that.
Without a doubt, Prince William is aware of the impact that his mother had on Great Britain and the world. He has always felt that preserving Diana's memory and legacy throughout all aspects of his own life was essential to both the monarchy and its people. The mistakes made by the establishment during the relationship of the Prince and Princess of Wales has cleared a path for Kate Middleton and her introduction to royal life. From their first year's courtship through to their wedding, and even to this day, Prince William and Princess Catherine have made it clear that Diana is not forgotten. Kate, Every day since her engagement to William was announced in 2010 has worn the sapphire and diamond engagement ring Charles gave to Diana in 1981. An audience of 2 billion people watched the royal wedding on April the 29th, 2011. It was the fairy tale wedding once again, but for a new generation. The service was much more intimate, with a significance placed on the importance of keeping the Middleton family close to the couple, unlike Diana's isolation during her relationship.
Kate Middleton wants to be the kind of queen that Princess Diana would have been had she survived. I think that those days are well over. The kind of glamour and the dancing and the sheer sort of Hollywood side of the job is something that the royal family have quite rightly stepped away from in the last 10 years, and she, I think, is part of that. She certainly has the looks and the presence, and I think that once she becomes an HRH and eventually queen, she will have the dignity.
He waited so long to propose, not because he wasn't sure. I think he probably had been sure for a long time, but it was so that he could give Kate the opportunity to see exactly what married life would be like and get out if it wasn't what she wanted. And you know, when you see them together, you do see a couple genuinely in love. They're very happy together. They work well together. They're a team. And I think they are great assets for the British royal family and great assets for the country.
Is there any aspect of the wedding that's sort of giving you sleepless nights?
The whole thing. How's that? No, I was telling everyone I did the rehearsals the other day, and my knee started tapping quite nervously. So it's quite a daunting prospect, but very exciting, and I'm thoroughly looking forward to it. But there's still a lot of planning to be done in the last 4 weeks.
So it's fascinating to be standing just metres from St Paul's Cathedral, which is of course where Prince Charles and Princess Diana married in 1981, and to think about how different the wedding between Prince William and Kate Middleton is, and that was a very conscious decision by the royal family.
So I think it will be a great occasion. I think it will be a very happy occasion, and I think people will take more interest in it because there's that certainty that these people are not being forced into something. They're doing it because they love each other. They've been together for 8 years. They're both 29. They both want to get on with it. I mean, it was famously said that Prince Charles got married because his father told him to, and he got divorced because his mother told him to. Well, that's not the situation we have here. You have Prince William, who is qualified in everything he's tried to do. He's shown a great sense of duty. He's trying to serve his country in a practical way, and he's made the decision, I think, without any pressure, and all the portents for the success of the marriage are there.
Steve, this event has been a long time in the planning, hasn't it? And the Prince has been very clear that he didn't ever want to rush into anything. He wanted to give Kate the chance to consider everything that she was getting herself into. How much of a concern has that been for you all?
Well, I mean, we take our lead from him, from Prince William, and right from the beginning he's wanted to go at his own pace. He's his own man, and she is her own woman, and between them they've worked out their future together, and they brought it to us. You know, we didn't know it was coming for the engagement. We've had a relatively short amount of time to plan the wedding, but they've been in charge from the start. So this whole thing has their personal stamp on it, especially the service. I think people will find it really moving, beautiful. It will be their day, their moment.
And Kate, of course, is going to be embraced by the British people, isn't she? And we're already seeing her emerging more and more as a personality in her own right. And,
yeah, she's a lovely, lovely person, yeah. And I think people will get to know her, obviously, over time. But she's just really wonderful, and they're a great couple together, and that's the real strength of it.
Huge undertaking for her and for them both, of course.
It is, but you know, they have the courage and strength, and the love for each other will enable them to do that.
Last night, Catherine Middleton spent the night surrounded by her family in a hotel they'd booked out, full of love and warmth, and we know that Princess Diana had her dinner on her tray along the road in Clarence House with Her Majesty the Queen Mother, but a woman who was in her 80s, you know, pretty old, and alone, not with her parents, not with her sisters. And of course, all that makes a difference. And of course, Diana was so young. 20, and you have Kate Middleton, who's nearly 10 years older, well-educated, very stable, very confident. I think this morning we saw a bride who's going to be very happy in this royal family.
In 1981, Princess Diana and Prince Charles was all about creating that idea of a fairy tale. So everything from the dress to how Diana arrived at St. Paul's Cathedral, and all of the way that the wedding was presented by the royal family. Now, obviously, we all know what happened to that fairy tale. It didn't happen, it ended very quickly. So it's been very important for the royal family this time around to make it clear that they're not trying to push the idea of some sort of fairy tale wedding. This is about a wedding between two ordinary people who love each other.
Inevitably, there had to be comparison with Princess Diana's wedding dress.
If you look back at Diana's gown, it wasn't Diana, was it? It wasn't a great dress. And we read reports, didn't we, years later, that she didn't think so either.
You know, there was just so much media interest and all wanting to know what the dress was going to look like, and of course we couldn't say anything. But every night they would rummage through the rubbish to see if they could find bits of fabrics or threads, and we used to leave bits of different colour threads and things, just so you know, so they put them on the wrong track really, and we had to put blinds up so that people couldn't peer through the windows, and we brought in security guards, and probably a bit overzealous with it, or we probably didn't need the giant safe we got to put the dress in it every night, but you know, we felt really didn't want to risk it, and we even had a spare dress hanging up just in case somebody did discover the secret.
All around the Abbey there were lilies of the valley, which of course the bride carried in her bouquet, and the smell, I went to Westminster Abbey last night, fantastic. And all these white, off-white, cream flowers, roses, wisteria, everything, absolutely all over the Abbey with loads and loads of candles, many more candles than they usually use. Stunning. The trees were an idea concocted between Catherine Middleton and Shane Connolly, who did the flowers. And the trees softened the Abbey and made it look like a tree-lined avenue. And I'm afraid it has set a trend. I think many brides will be saying, ah yes, I want trees for my wedding.
The moment that Kate and William were finally alone, after they had left the Abbey, walked up the aisle together as man and wife, they got into their carriage, and she looked at him and said, "I am so happy." It was an absolutely beautiful moment that every bride can relate to, I'm sure. But what a special day for her to walk into that church as Kate Middleton and to leave as a princess.
to believe that it's nearly 2 decades since Diana passed. I think what's so amazing is how William and Kate, to her credit, have been determined to continue her legacy, and Prince Harry as well. Let's not forget all the amazing charity work that he's done. Prince Harry said when he was 18 that he promised he would continue the legacy of his mother's work, and he's done that through the incredible work he does in Africa. Kate is doing it by wearing that ring every single day, by naming her daughter the third name after Diana. William as well, encompassing Diana in so many ways, and the fact that he chose the apartment at Kensington Palace. I think all of these things are very deliberate moves to keep Diana's memory alive. Yes, she was the people's princess, the Princess of Wales, but she was William and Harry's mother. So she's been very instrumental, she's been very important, and I think what she's brought to William and Kate is a lack of tradition, if you want. The formality that you expect with the royals, the nursery being the domain of the nanny and governesses, and the children are kept away from the adults. That's not the case at Kensington Palace. At apartment 1A, the children are very much a part of William and Kate's life, and I think that's a reflection of Kate's own childhood. And I think it's what Diana would have absolutely wanted. It was what she wanted for William and Harry.
I think Diana would want those boys to remember the lessons that she taught them. I think she'd want them to remember when she took them down to see the homeless in Charing Cross. She'd want them to remember the first person that she introduced them to dying with HIV and AIDS. She'd want them to remember the people in her world.
The biggest impact that you can have as an individual is within your own community. Sometimes the smallest of things, like helping someone cross the road, to help someone climb a flight of stairs, or help someone lift their shopping into the back of their car. It really makes a difference. It doesn't cost a thing, just a little bit of your time. Often without realizing it, those we admire most are people who are committed to helping others, to giving their time freely to another, to volunteering like you guys. Every one of you here has inspired others by what you have done, what you are doing, so please don't stop.
The Prince's dedication to keeping the memory and work of their mother alive has been a tremendous factor in the constant evolution of the monarchy. Princess Diana paved the way for how our modern-day monarchy interacts and represents its people. The success of the engagement and wedding of Prince William and Kate Middleton has proved how much the palace has grown and learned from the mistakes of its past.
Diana's death secured a safe path for Kate. Diana broke all the moulds and made life better for Kate. Someone she never met, but she did it for her son and her son's wife. And so now Kate has a much easier life, far easier than Diana did at her age.
In a funny way, I always felt that Diana put people in touch with the better side of their lives. You know, we all have our problems, but they saw how she dealt with hers, and they took comfort from that, and they really warmed to her.
The legacy of the People's Princess lives on to this day. It was her love of life, of people, of those less fortunate, and of her children that saw her lead a quiet but powerful revolution that changed the British royal family forever.
First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. She was an exceptional and gifted human being. In good times and bad, she never lost her capacity to smile and laugh, nor to inspire others with her warmth and kindness. I admired and respected her for her energy and commitment to others, and especially for her devotion to her two boys. No one who knew Diana will ever forget her. Millions of others who never met her, but felt they knew her, will remember her.
Do you think you'll ever be Queen?
No, I don't. No. Because I do things differently. Because I don't go by a rule book. Because I lead from the heart, not the head. And albeit that's got me into trouble in my work, I understand that. But someone's got to go out there and love people and show it.